I went to sleep this past week with a vision of peace, but I awoke to a war zone in conditions of beef. Instead of getting along, getting it on, spitting chrome, splitting domes, steady killing our own ancestors, rolling over more than twice in their graves. Imagine giving up your life and sacrificing in vain. We went from kings and queens and true reflections of God to being killers and thieves, bending laps on this yard. For every slave they set free, they made a slave of the mind. Plantations been redefined, prison changed the design. Cell phones advanced enough to log you onto the net, but at the same time it's starving to death. They done stacked the deck for them and left the color to die. And the more I peep it, I develop blood in my eye. They got us trapped in a cycle of pain, ambition, and violence, predestined for early graves and prison confinement. 5 fingers brought to...
Say, what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down! Today I'm going to be doing a reaction to a video called Hood Politics. Now in this particular video, some Crips jump on a bus to confront some Bloods, and unfortunately an innocent girl is shot and loses her life. At the time of me doing this reaction, this video has over 1 million views. Now the intro music that you guys heard several times in the past, I have inserted it at the end of my videos, and people will often ask me, hey man, who is that rapping? Well, the dude rapping is one of the individuals who was convicted for this murder of this innocent girl, and then 17 years later he had his case overturned by the federal courts. He goes by the name of Bang, and actually, my bad, he did 18 years. Let's get into this video.
Welcome to Hood Politics. In this episode, I will be discussing an incident involving a woman named Corey Williams in the 1180 East Coast Crips, which is a gang located on the east side of South Central Los Angeles. The facts of the case are as follows. In 1997, the 1180 East Coast Crips were at war with the surrounding blood gangs. These gangs included the Athens Park Bloods, the Miller Gangster Bloods, the Denver Lane Bloods, and the Bounty Hunter Watts Bloods. Many blood gang members rode the Route 53 MTA bus from Centennial High, which is a Compton high school dominated by Pyru and blood gangs. The bus's route went through 11-8 territory. The Bloods would shout insults and flash gang signs from the bus as it passed by, which upset the Crips, and they decided to take action. On January 15, 1997, a group of 11-8 Crips met up and planned to ambush the bus. Wilbert Pugh, also known as Lil Evil, was 20 years old at the time, and being an older member, he coordinated the attack. Robert Johnson, also known as Lil Bob or Baby Kiko, attended the meeting. He was 16 years old at the time. Nicholas Briggs was also at the meeting, but he declined to join the group in the attack because he had a court date, and 3 or 4 other Crips also attended the meeting. On January 16th, the group met up again, and Pugh led them to the intersection of Imperial Highway and Avalon Boulevard, where they waited for the bus. At about 3:30 p.m., the bus approached the intersection. A 17-year-old young woman named Corey Williams was sitting by the rear door next to her friend, an 18-year-old woman named Tammy Freeman.
Now this story right here definitely hits home with me because when I was growing up, I had a next door neighbor, and her name was Corey as well. And she lived next door to me probably about 4 or 5 years, and then later on in the high school years, her family moved. Unfortunately for her, she was at a party that was being held in Banning, and pretty much like this Corey here, I believe she had already graduated and was getting ready to go on with her life, and shots rang out at this party that she was attending in Banning, and unfortunately she was shot and killed and lost her life. So when I hear this lady's name Corey, definitely reminds me of my next door neighbor Corey, who also lost her life in a shooting.
16-year-old young man named Tyrone Lewis was sitting behind the girls wearing a red Tommy Hilfiger shirt. When the bus pulled up to a stop, Pugh, Johnson, and the other Crips gathered around. Pugh and another Crip boarded the bus, while Johnson and the rest of the group stayed outside. One of the Crips yelled, "Slob on the bus," and pointed directly at Lewis, believing Lewis to be a member of the Bounty Hunter Bloods.
Now, those individuals who watch my show who may not be familiar with the gang culture, or who may not even live in the United States, because I have a lot of people not from the United States who tap in with my channel. So the term when they hopped on the bus and screamed, that is a disrespectful term targeted toward Bloods. And so that was the starting of all this unfortunate stuff that happened after, you know, those dudes entered the bus.
Crips began yelling, "This 1180 East Coast Crips, y'all got a problem with us? Fuck slobs, this BK all day." Pugh and the other man exited the bus, and Pugh shouted, "Shoot this motherfucker up," and Johnson put out a handgun and began to open fire into the rear of the bus as the group of Crips cheered them on. Inside of the bus there was chaos as people rushed towards the front and hid under the bus seats. The Crips fled the scene. Lewis rushed to the bus driver with his shirt covered in blood, shouting, "Go, go, keep driving in case they try to get back on the bus." Lewis was uninjured, but Corey had been shot. A bullet severed an airway and blood poured from her neck. Another woman on the bus put her hand around Corey's neck in an effort to stop the bleeding. Corey was transported to King Drew Medical Center, where she was pronounced dead on arrival. Freeman was shot in the shoulder, but she later recovered. Following the shooting, Pugh and Johnson fled to Milwaukee. A resident named Warren Hardy tipped off the police, saying he overheard several teenagers in the backyard near the site of the shooting talking and laughing about the shooting. When police arrived at the location, they found an arrested Briggs and a 16-year-old man named Randall Amato. Johnson was arrested in Milwaukee a week later and confessed to the shooting. Pugh was arrested in Milwaukee a year after the shooting. 3 other 11A Crips were also arrested, but were released due to lack of evidence regarding their roles in the crime. Briggs was later released as well. Amato, Pugh, and Johnson were tried together before 2 juries. One jury concentrated on Johnson as the shooter, and the other jury deliberated over the roles of Pugh and Amato as aiders and abettors, which means to assist another in the commission of a crime. Several witnesses confirmed that Pugh led the attack and that Johnson had done the shooting, but evidence for Amato's role in the incident was limited. There were 2 witnesses that placed Amato at the scene. The first witness was John Grissom. Grissom was a high school classmate of Amato. He testified seeing Amato with a group of people at the intersection of Imperial Highway and Avalon Boulevard, running towards the bus stop. The second witness was Natasha Barner. Barner was Pugh's girlfriend at the time of the shooting and testified seeing Amato with a group of people crossing the street, walking towards the bus stop prior to the shooting. Warren Hardy was the key witness against Amato. Hardy lived less than a block from the intersection of Imperial Highway and Avalon Boulevard. He testified seeing a chubby boy with his hair in a ponytail, carrying a gun, walking with a group of teenagers towards Avalon Boulevard just before the shooting, which matched Amato's description. Hardy testified hearing gunshots and seeing the same group run down the street. The next night, Hardy testified hearing several teenagers behind his building talking and laughing about the shooting. Hardy said that he called the police, who then arrived, found Amato and Briggs, and arrested them.
Now let me make out something that I think this story does mention. In my personal talks with the homie Bang, while Bang is not from my hood, he is definitely still the homie, right? We done a lot of time, we talk often, and he's a good dude. So unfortunately, on the day of this shooting, also you had an individual by the name of Ennis Cosby, who was the son of Bill Cosby, and he was killed as well on that day. The mother of Corey Williams, who I believe her name was Loretta, eventually she held a press conference, and one thing that she mentioned in that press conference is it seems to be a lot of focus on the murder of Ennis Cosby only, and basically she was saying that, hey, you know, what's up with my daughter? Isn't she important as well? And according to Bang, at some point in time, her situation got to the ears of Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby contacted her, and he put out a large reward for individuals responsible for the death of Corey. So it really got the ball rolling. It really put a lot of push behind the police to just grab anybody and arrest them. And so as you see in this case, there was a lot of individuals arrested, and then eventually many were let go due to lack of evidence.
During the trial, Hardy could not identify Amato as the person he saw holding a gun, nor could he identify him as one of the teenagers he heard talking and joking about the shooting. Hardy said that he couldn't remember key details. The court saw that Hardy was reluctant to testify, so when LAPD detective named Michelle Esquivel finished delivering his testimony to the jury, Esquivel read the statement that Hardy made to the police to the court. After Amato and Briggs were arrested, a detective asked Hardy if they had the correct guys, and Hardy said yes. When the defense cross-examined John Grissom, Natasha Barner, and other witnesses, none of them actually saw Amato carrying a weapon or saw him near the bus. Witnesses testified knowing that Pugh and Johnson were members of the 11/8 East Coast Crips, but none of them believed Amato to be a member, although he did have the nickname Bang. The defense attorney told the court that Johnson was raised in a broken home. His father was in jail for the murder of a security guard at a Compton check cashing business, and his mother was in and out of jail for burglary and other crimes. The defense went on to say that Johnson had been in and out of trouble with the law since he was 11 years old, and he was initiated into the 11/8 East Coast Crips when he was only 12 years old. Corey's family and friends spoke to the court. Corey was a fan of oldies music and horror movies. She was a senior at Centennial High and was looking forward to graduation. At the time of her murder, Corey had a form to order her graduation gown in her back pocket. Corey's mother, Loretta, said that she felt unsafe with Corey walking the streets, and she believed that her riding the bus was a safer option. Bill Cosby reached out to Corey's mother after the murder to give his condolences. Cosby's son Ennis was murdered on the same day as Corey. Ennis was changing a tire on the side of a road in Los Angeles when he was shot in the head by a man named Mikhail Markisev in a failed robbery attempt. Witnesses that were on the bus during the shooting took the stand against Pugh and Johnson, and the prosecutor reiterated Hardy's statement against Amato. Ultimately, Randall Amato was sentenced to 27 years to life in prison. Wilbert Pugh was also sentenced to 27 years to life in prison, and Robert Johnson was sentenced to 35 years to life in prison. During the sentencing, Pugh tried to leave the courtroom, and Amato lunged at the prosecutor and had to be restrained.
Now let me read to you guys exactly what was reported by the Los Angeles Times in relation to the homie Bang, Randall Amato, after being found guilty of a crime he says he had no participation in, but was still found guilty and convicted, and I believe sentenced to 27 years to life. What began as the quiet conclusion of a lengthy murder trial transformed into a dramatic courtroom confrontation within seconds of the jury announcing guilty verdicts against Randall Amato and a co-defendant in the fatal shooting of 17-year-old Corey Williams. According to the courtroom accounts, Amato suddenly sprang from his chair immediately after the verdict was read and rushed toward the prosecuting attorney. The prosecutor later recalled that the two made brief eye contact before the charge, giving him the unmistakable impression that Amato was coming directly towards him. Sheriff deputies reacted instantly, intercepting Amato before he could reach the prosecutor. Several deputies wrestled him to the courtroom floor as spectators gasped and family members shouted while the courtroom erupted into confusion. The disturbance lasted only moments, but witnesses said it dramatically changed the atmosphere inside the courtroom. One juror later described the confrontation as one of the most frightening experiences of his life, explaining that even after serving in Vietnam, the sudden outburst left him deeply shaken. While he definitely is sorry that Corey Williams lost her life, he had nothing to do with the shooting. He actually once again was convicted of aiding and abetting, even though several times people on the stand testified that they never seen him carrying a weapon. So of course he also was extremely upset.
After the sentencing, the defense attorney discovered that Hardy was a Piru gang member and on probation at the time of his testimony. The defense told the court that Hardy wasn't a reliable witness because he's from a rival gang and because he may be earning favor with his probation officer by testifying. The defense accused the prosecutor of suppressing evidence that could have changed the outcome of the trial. Amato filed for a new trial, but his motion was denied. Amato took his motion to the Ninth Circuit Court, and after 15 years, Amato's conviction was reversed and remanded. Loretta went on to establish a scholarship fund in Corey's honor. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe.
So when the homie Bang got his case remanded, this in a nutshell is basically what that means. The federal courts ruled that his constitutional right to a fair trial was violated when the prosecutor didn't hand over evidence in relation to their witness, Hardy. Hardy was a gang member. He also was on probation at the time, and so those things right there, and also he was a gang member who was historically a rival to the Crips, and so he could have had an axe to grind. And it's also very well possible that he could have received special treatment in relation to being on probation for his testimony from his probation officer. So when he was sent back to the Los Angeles County Superior Court, they had a couple of options. They could have retried him. They could have solved it through some type of understanding and deal agreement, so on and so forth. So when Bang got back down to the Los Angeles County Jail, he eventually ended up filing a $8.9 million lawsuit against the Los Angeles County for wrongly being convicted. Now, the bad thing about that is a lot of times when cases get back remanded, the prosecution, even if evidence points to they're not guilty or there's no evidence showing they're guilty, they at times do not want to let go of that conviction. And so a lot of times they will definitely string a person through the wire and try to take him back to court, so on and so forth, right? So if Bang had won another trial, even if he opted to try to get a speedy trial, which would have been possibly in 60 days, by the case being so old, there are times and reasons that the judge can basically extend and go past his right to have a speedy trial because, of course, the prosecution is going to argue, Your Honor, this case is 17 years old. A lot of information is hard to find. Witnesses are gone, so on and so forth. So I need an extension so I can try to find some of these witnesses, so on and so forth. And so it likely would have ran well into 8 months or a year, and that's even if the homie Bang had opted for a speedy trial. And in all actuality, Bang's lawyer probably would have needed some time himself to read through the transcripts, read through rulings, familiarize himself with the case, so on and so forth. So Bang could have been in the county jail for possibly another year, year and a half. And as I mentioned earlier, Bang himself had filed an $8.9 million lawsuit against the Los Angeles County for his wrongful incarceration. Though during this period in 2015 in the Los Angeles County Jail, there was a lot of racial tension in all the different jails going on between the blacks and the Hispanics. One day, if my memory serves me correct, Bang told me that a blood by the name of Cap had came back into the dorm. I believe he said he was housed in a 66-man dorm and there were 16 blacks in there. And this individual, this blood, tells him that a black dude has lost his life at the hands of Mexicans in another part of the jail. So now let's keep in mind that Bang is from LA. He has been locked in prison for 17 years. And even though you may go to prison innocent of a charge, when you go to prison as a gang member, you still have to do what it takes to survive, right? And so knowing the history and the dynamics at times between Mexicans and blacks and different type of riots and things jumping off, and also knowing himself, he realized that it was better to then take a deal for his freedom and basically plead guilty to a voluntary manslaughter and get time served, as opposed to waiting in the county, fighting a new trial. He would first have to go to trial and be found not guilty in order to even be successful on the lawsuit. For all legal intents and purposes, if he does happen to take a deal, which he ended up doing, of a lesser charge of voluntary manslaughter, and they give him time served, then essentially, from a legal aspect, that is admitting that he was not wrongfully convicted and wrongfully incarcerated, and he would have no chance at a lawsuit. Once again, though, Bang, being the individual that he is, a stomp down rider who's always with the business, who knows exactly what type of individual he is when things get cracking right, he chose to just go ahead and take the deal because he figured, what good is $8.9 million going to do me if I end up having to catch a murderer or I get harmed myself? That money is not going to do me any good down the line. And so once again, he opted to take the deal on a voluntary manslaughter on the condition that he be released under time served. When he got back from taking the deal, he was expecting to be released immediately. Unbeknownst to him, when it came time to be released, there was a problem between the records from the Los Angeles County Jail and the California Department of Corrections, because earlier, many years before, he had stabbed an individual in Salinas Valley, and he still had an assault on an inmate with a deadly weapon hanging over his head. And so if my memory serves me correctly, it still took about another 18 days, he said, for him to finally get released and actually gain his freedom. And so once again, my sincere condolences go out to the family of Corey Williams, her family and friends, and everybody who was negatively affected by this tragedy. But that's the story of the homie Bang, how he was sent to prison and how he eventually gained his freedom. Y'all know what time it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.
It's for all my niggas out there still putting in work, hunting and chasing niggas down. Y'all better wake up, nigga. They hunting us at the same time. Check me out. 5 fingers brought together make the strength of the fist. Black power, white devils put an end to that shit. The strongest race alive divided by the love of the dough. The greed, jealousy, and envy in the colors we spoke. 5 fingers brought together make the strength of the fist. Black power, white devils put an end to that shit. The strongest race alive divided by the love of the dough. The greed, jealousy, and envy in the colors we spoke. I went to sleep this past week with a vision of peace, but I awoke to a war zone in conditions of beef. Instead of getting along, niggas is getting it on. Spitting chrome, splitting domes, steady killing our own ancestors, rolling over more than twice in their graves. Imagine giving up your life and sacrificing in vain. We went from kings and queens and true reflections of God to being killers and thieves, bending laps on this yard. For every slave they set free, they made a slave of the mind. Plantations been redefined, prison changed the design. Cell phones advanced enough to log you onto the net, but at the same time it's motherfuckers starving to death. They done stacked the deck for them and left the color to die. And the more I peep it, I develop blood in my eye. They got us trapped in a cycle of pain, ambition, Passion and violence, predestined for early graves and prison confinement. 5 fingers brought together make the strength of the fist. Black power, white devils put an end to that shit. The strongest race alive divided by the love of the dough. Degree, jealousy, and envy in the colors we spoke. 5 fingers brought together make the strength of the fist. Black power, white devils put an end to that shit. The strongest race alive divided by the love of the dough. Degree, jealousy, and envy in the colors we spoke. What's the use in breathing air if it's polluted with hate? And aside from suicide, ain't no disputing with fate. Role models is hard to find and ain't no hope in these streets. These niggas looking up to G's, low composing with heat. Growing up, representing to the ends of the earth. Slanging dope, making pistol smoke, defending they turf. Refusing to coexist with enemies of the set. And vowing death before the sign of enemies to the death. Black history, what? Nigga, you a goddamn fool. Malcolm, Huey, and Nat, George, and Jonathan, who? Nigga, please, get your ass on and give me some feet. This Crip here, fuck that bullshit you spitting at me. But back then, I wasn't knowing about that unseen hand. Didn't know they had a fuck you and a fuck me plan. They scared to death of our potential cause they knowing the truth. And once we find it out ourselves, they ain't gonna know what to do. 5 fingers brought together make the strength of the fist. Black power, white devils put an end to that shit. The strongest race alive divided by the love of the dough. Degree, jealousy, and envy in the colors we spoke. 5 fingers brought together make the strength of the fist. Black power, white devils put an end to that shit. The strongest race alive divided by the love of the dough. Degree, jealousy, and envy in the colors we spoke. How could the same minds that built the pyramid to the east go from that to self-hatred, killing kids in the street? From one extreme to the next, opposite ends of the spectrum. Nobody to lead the lost, teach, defend, and protect them. Most blacks nowadays, they too ashamed of their skin. Psychologically enslaved, caged and chained from within. It's time to stand up and take back what's rightfully ours. Take the lead and heal the world, ascend to heights of the stars. I'm just a man and I ain't perfect, I got plenty of flaws. But I'm a soldier down to die and not relent for the cause. I come about one of the many training camps of the slum. Soon as you learn to tie your shoes, you taught to handle a gun. Reading riders for a war between the red and the blue. Cause you a blood and I'm a Crip that make me better than you. Shit, the government is loving it, they plucking us off. So fuck these Democrat Republicans that's fucking us all. 5 fingers brought together make the strength of the fist. Black power, white devils put an end to that shit. The strongest race alive divided by the love of the dough. Degree, jealousy, and envy in the colors we spoke. 5 fingers brought together make the strength of the fist. Black power, white devils put an end to that shit. The strongest race alive divided by the love of the dough. Degree, jealousy, and envy in the colors we spoke. Y'all niggas better be ready, nigga. Keep them motherfucking guns bustin' when these tanks pull up in the hood near you. Open your motherfucking eyes and start looking up out them phones at these clouds and these planes, these chemtrails and all this shit they killing us with.